Hey folks, and welcome to another edition of Zog Science. We're going to be continuing talking about hormonal control and getting into plant hormones. So there are there are four different main classes of hormones that we're going to talk about for plants. We're going to talk about auxins, gibberellins, abscisic acid, and then ethylene. And there are others, but these are just the four that we're going to talk about and get into. So auxin is produced in young leaves and apical meristems. And when we talk about apical meristems, we're talking about stems that are on the top, at the top of the plant. That's where plants are growing from. And what auxin does is that it promotes stem elongation. So it's going to cause the stem to grow longer. It's going to help in the formation of roots. So it is also found produced in roots, and it helps roots to grow down. It enhances apical dominance, so it basically will force the plant to be growing from the top, not to the sides. And then it also helps facilitate phototropism and gravitropism. Phototropism is the tendency for plants to grow towards the light. So you can put a plant on its side and it will begin to kind of turn and grow upwards if the light is above it. We also have gravitropism, which is where the roots are going to be growing down, and then the stem will begin to grow away from gravity. So there are a couple different ways that plants kind of regulate which way they go, and auxin helps with that. So what we can see here is we've got a plant that has some axillary buds, and you notice that these buds are not really growing at all. And what happens is that the apical meristem is up here kind of towards the top of the plant. And what happens is that we cut that off. So we cut the plant off right in this area. And without any auxin, because the auxin is being produced by the apical meristem, which is up here above the where we're seeing, these axillary buds will begin to grow into these lateral branches. So you can see that right here, right? We've got a growth from the axillary buds. However, if auxin is added to the decapitated stem, you notice that the axillary buds are not growing at all because they're still getting their auxin. So that's what we talk about when we talk about apical dominance. That's where the growth is happening all at the top. All right, the next one we've got is our gibberellins. These are produced in apical buds. So again, those buds that are up at the top in the roots, young leaves, and seeds. So this one is again going to do some stimulation of stem elongation, so helping the plant to grow. It is also very important in fruit growth, seed development and germination, as well as sex determination. So in this case, we've got some gibberellin-induced stem growth. So gibberellins were added to this plant, while not to this plant, and you can see that the stem for this plant has been growing a lot. These are two different sets of grapes. One is from a tree where gibberellins were not sprayed. The other one is where gibberellins were sprayed. So you can see that this would be applicable in agriculture, where you would spray some gibberellins and help grow larger fruits. And then here in the seed germination, you've got the gibberellins are going to be released, and when they're released, that is going to tell the aleuron, which is the kind of the coating around the seed, to release amylase. That amylase is going to break down the starch that is found inside the seed, so that way now that starch can be broken down into sugars, which can then be used by the shoot as it is growing. The seedling as it is trying to find its way up out of the soil. Next, we've got abscisic acid. It is produced pretty much everywhere in the plant. It inhibits growth, promotes seed dormancy, which is where the seeds, are not growing yet. So basically, when the seeds are just chilling out, you've got more abscisic acid than other things. It helps promote leaf senescence, which is programmed death. This is, where the leaves are falling off in the autumn. And then it promotes desiccation tolerance. So if we go back to what we're thinking here, in this case, your ABA, while the seed is not germinating, is going to be outweighing the amount of gibberellins, GA. And what happens is that when the seed comes into contact with water, now your gibberellins are produced, they override the abscisic acid and allows the seed to begin to germinate. So here are some mutants that have lack of ABA. So example, these are some mangroves, and you notice that this mangrove fruit right here is beginning to grow a root. The reason why is because it does not have ABA. It is not producing abscisic acid, and so therefore it is just going to start germinating wherever, and you can see that it's still attached to the tree, which is obviously not the best. This is a piece of corn with the same problem. You can see that the seed is trying to begin to germinate, which is kind of cute, but also not very good for the plant. All right, the last one we're going to talk about is ethylene, which is unique because it is a gas. It triggers growth and fruit ripening, and it also promotes the triple response. The triple response is the inhibition of stem elongation, promotion of lateral expansion, and horizontal growth. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if we take a look at this banana, right, when your bananas are ripening and going from the green, which is not particularly easy to eat, over to the yellow, which is much more easy to eat, has more flavor, that is being produced by the ethylene gas. That's why if you were to put bananas inside a brown bag, they would ripen much more quickly. Whereas if you leave bananas out on the countertop, they ripen more slowly because that ethylene is being concentrated inside the bag. So that really promotes the process of fruit ripening. So if you've ever got some green bananas and you're like, I'd like to eat these sooner rather than later, stick them in a bag for half a day or so, and pull them back out, and they'll be pretty much ripened and ready to go. All right, so the triple response. Let's talk about that a little bit more, okay? Seedlings, right, are going to start off underneath the soil, which means that there are going to be times where there are obstacles in their way to actually being able to break through the soil and then begin the process of photosynthesis. What the triple response is that it stunts the growth upwards, basically allows the seedling to kind of go off to the side and then begin to move upwards again once it has moved around its obstacle. And what scientists have found is that it is the ethylene that basically is allowing the plant to do that. So the ethylene concentration, as it increases, you get a larger and larger triple response. These are some mutants. So in this case, this mutant is not susceptible to ethylene, and so therefore it is growing even in the presence of ethylene, whereas all these seedlings down here at the bottom are responding to ethylene. This one is responding to ethylene more than it should, and that's why it is so much shorter than all the rest of them. All right, and then finally we've got abscission, which is the loss of plant parts, and this is pretty much programmed. This is leaves falling off in the autumn, and it is a complex interaction between all the different hormones. But basically, what happens is that auxin levels decrease, and the cells become susceptible to ethylene. And when they become susceptible to ethylene, they tend to not function as well because, as we talked about ethylene earlier, it tends to slow growth and all that kind of thing. And what we actually see is that when the leaves are going to be falling off, there is a protective cork layer right here that kind of builds up so that way when the leaf falls off, the plant doesn't start losing all of this sap and water through a hole that's formed. And so it's an interesting process where it kind of builds up. And again, it's all due to these interactions of these particular hormones. So thanks for watching. That's all I've got for you this time, and I'll see you in the future.